Hello and welcome to the Fishing Guide Podcast. Well, we're finding out a lot of things about Payton, but what we really need to know is about crappie fishing.
Yeah.
And that's why he's here, because he's going to tell us, because we were talking earlier about catching fish, and a prime time to come and go fishing and catch big crappie is the end of February, start of March. And so Payton, who happens to be a crappie fishing guide on Beaver Lake, more than happy to come in, talk to us, give us some secrets,
Always.
give us some tips, and tell us the reason why those big crappie are up. That's the most shallowest they're going to get and the biggest they're going to grow to size-wise.
Yeah, I think all the years I've been doing this, I guess it would be my opinion,
right,
that the bigger crappie move up with everything else up the river arms.
Okay.
And I'm talking they're coming from miles away, I think, from the big end. Because all of a sudden, just big fish will just show up at the same time every year.
Right.
You know, we fish this area all year. We don't find that same quality.
Right.
You know, we find, 10, 11, but these are the 14 to 16ers that show up all of a sudden.
Right.
So, we figured out to target them on guide trips. If people that don't fish a bunch, we'll spot a rig for them out in open water.
Okay.
In the river channels on flats and then the backs of, big creek arms. Or we'll do the most popular method now, which is chasing roamers.
Right.
Or chasing the chickens, as my uncle says. So he calls it chasing. He loves to go. And, we target them fish with bigger baits usually in that end of February, March time, and then through March. We're using a 2 to 4 inch bait.
Wow.
Most of the time I'm throwing a 2 1/4 to 3 with either a 1/4 ounce head or an 1/8 ounce head.
Right.
My favorite's quarter around that time. A bigger, bulkier bait for them bigger fish just seems to really work.
Right.
And you can cover water and throw it at them a lot faster. And it gets down there to them, especially if they're on the move. That's the biggest thing, getting it to them quick before they take off again.
Uh-huh. So the water temperature in that part of the year, is it getting back into the 50s?
Yeah, usually
mid-50s?
Yeah, 48 to 50s is what it seems to be. But I think they've already got that on their mind, what they're wanting to do.
Right.
And that just seems to be the best time to find them moving up, is around that time.
Now, are these black crappie or white crappie? Are you talking both? Or
90% of them are whites.
White crappie.
White crappie.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes there'll be a few big black ones in there with them. I think they're just lost, but they're usually big ones.
Right.
So I'm talking, 1.5 pounds to, 2 pounds.
Right.
And then you'll get some hybrids in there with them. There was a guy the other day called a big hybrid. So, and those are known to get fat. Those are big crappie. But, that when I guide, I try to get everybody to book between February and March, because that seems like when we have the best quality of fish.
Right.
And they get the full experience of Beaver Lake.
And
it's crappie. So, because we have a bunch of them.
We have a lot. We have a good population of crappie, don't we?
Yeah.
Coming up, and also the recruitment year, since a lot of the short ones are like 9.5 inches, and 9.5 inches to 10 inches, and they seem to be right in there, don't they?
Yeah.
So, what does a crappie grow? Do you know how big a crappie grows every year?
They say it takes 3 years for them to get to 10 inches.
Right.
But the biologists have found, even in the nursery pond, fish that we stocked in April, they spawned out in the nursery pond. Right. And I think when they released them in July, they had some that were already 3 inches.
Right.
So that's a huge growth rate without predation and food source in there.
Right.
But that's extraordinary. I think the healthier your water, the faster they'll grow.
Yeah.
With our warm winters like we're having, them fish are growing.
Yeah, so far.
Yeah,
we've had a warm winter.
Yeah, it's coming.
There's less water in the lake, and so it should be easier for it to actually freeze over if there's less water compared to probably more water.
So that's going to
I don't know if that's a fact.
It might be a shad kill then. You've seen it more than I have over the years, so.
Yeah, we live right on the shoreline right here. We could just take our long poles, our 18-footers, and almost get our B&M long rods. There's been years when I could have caught fish with the new B&M Black Diamond.
Oh, for sure.
I could have flipped out there and caught me one.
Get out there 30, 40 feet, no problem.
I just stick my American fish tree like
There you go.
right there.
That'll do it.
Put it out there.
If it freezes, you probably drill a hole.
Yeah. So so catching them, what's kind of the key areas that you're looking for if you're spider rigging compared to if you're out there just scoping them? Because there's got to be a difference, because spider rigging, you're really not moving at a fast pace. What's the speed that you're trying to keep your boat at?
Oh, like 0.3 mostly,
Yeah.
or less. Some guys like to go really slow. I'm more of a speed fisherman, so I like to go a little bit faster.
Right.
And, when I don't like my baits being steady, I like them kind of moving just a little bit. So, and it seems that way with some of these crappie. They want to follow it before they hit it.
Right.
So I like to keep my stuff moving.
That's still pretty slow.
It's
So you're
still
not
slow.
really moving from area to area when you're spider rigging. You're usually picking an area and kind of picking it apart, right?
I'm picking it apart. I'm trying to point my boat in the wind. It all depends on the wind and what them fish are doing. Because, you could go 300 yards and these fish over here are biting better than these fish over here.
Right.
So, it just kind of depends where they're at and how their feeding activity is in the wind.
And if you're spider rigging that time of year, are you looking at brush or laydowns? Are you looking at just open water fish that are roaming?
Open water and brush piles. I like to take them over brush piles. But there's some times that we find fish in 60 foot of water, 2 foot deep,
Right.
roaming. So it just shocks people's mind that they're out there in the boat channel.
So when you're spider rigging, tell us your setup. What do you got? What do you got for rods and reels and lures
I use the
or minnows?
B&M Bucks Graphite jig pole, which are 16 foot long. I have a ½ ounce weight in between two baits. My top bait will be a number 2 minnow hook. And then I'll have my weight in the middle, about 12 inches down. And at the bottom, I'll have a Jighead at the bottom, 16th ounce, with a plastic bait. I like to use the minnow minders from Bobby Garland. And then I'll tip that with a minnow and the top hook with a minnow. So that way, when I'm pushing that bait through the water, that crappie can come up. And most of the time, they'll come up and they'll look at that bottom bait. They'll either eat that or they'll jump up real quick and get the minnow. And sometimes, if you're going through a school, you'll have 2 at a time.
Right.
So you'll have 2 that hit each bait. But I think the color different. I'll have different colors on there. If they seem like they want a certain color, I'll change them all out, and they'll all be the same color.
Right.
So,
are you making those rigs yourself?
yeah, I do.
Are you?
Yep.
So you sit around and make those?
Yeah, sit around and make them. It's like, we'll have some cold days with
Right.
7 degrees outside. It'd be perfect for that. Can't do nothing else. Yeah, I make them with 8-pound test.
8-pound test.
Yep. I use 8-pound test on my spider rigging.
Okay.
So
that's your setup, and if you were to be fishing, most of the time you're going to be fishing in the river arms. Then
yes,
you won't go much past Horseshoe Bend, right?
No, not usually. No,
Right.
You go into
But
Montanay
then
and find some roamers at a certain time, but usually all the fish are moved up, probably from Nelson's Holler all the way up the river arms.
Right. And so for roamers, what do you? What's going to be your setup? What's going to be your rig? Rod, lure.
I like to use. Well, I have several in the boat. I look like a bass fisherman during the roamer time.
Right.
I'll have 18-footer from B&M, the Black Diamond. I'll have the 14-footer, the 75th series casting rod. If you want to throw at them real quick, that's a fun way to catch them. And I'll even have my sharpshooter 6 in there. So because it's a light pole and I can get a little faster with it. It'll have a 6-pound test on it. So each pole will have anywhere from 6 to 10-pound test on it.
Right.
So it just kind of depends on the day and how they're reacting. Because usually if they're reacting kind of skittish, I'll have to downgrade and use my 75th series and put a 16th ounce jig head on it with a little baby shad and then a little split shot above it. And just to twink it out there and, just to try to get a little bit of lighter action. So it just kind of depends on how they react. But have an arsenal in the boat.
It sounds like an arsenal.
Yeah. So, I've got everything with me for how they're going to react that day.
Right.
And some days you're chunking lead at them with a big old bait, and it's just different from the next. And they're just swallowing it. So, So, just like it.
Do cold fronts affect them that time of year when you got, because end of February, start of March, you got compared to the fall. Like the fall, when you get a front come through in the fall, it seems like it's more consistent fishing because the water getting colder isn't an issue. You want the water to get colder when you're leaving that summer period. But in that time of year when, let's say, you get a cold front come through, how does that affect those? Probably not as much spider rigging because you're using live bait, right? But I mean, but for scoping them.
I've tried to determine what affects them the most, but some days that are horribly nasty and you don't think you're going to catch nothing, you don't want to be out there, it's on fire, and you just can't believe that. And you're having to dip your pole down the water to defrost it, get the ice off of it, and then some days it'll be sunny and beautiful, and you can't get them to bite.
Right.
So it's amazing.
I don't like sunny, beautiful days. Those are good days for people to take boat rides.
Yeah, no, it's the nastier the day is what I like. Even for the dock shooting that I like to do, it the nastier the better.
Right.
So I don't know. I think it's just I'm not going to sit here and go, I'm not going today. They're not going to bite because like right now we catch them.
Right. So, I know we catch them right now.
So I that myth's debunked for me.
Right.
I think if they're on the feeding mood, they're going to hit it. You get it in their face, they're going to hit it.
Well, what tips would you give someone that's going to go fishing that time of year? Is there a color of lure they should use, or is it a size thing more?
I think color. Have at least 3 different colors of jig heads. Have pink, chartreuse, and silver. You cannot go wrong on this lake with a monkey milk colored bait or a salt and pepper, or whatever they want to call it, or a chartreuse or a shad pattern. I mean, I won't leave the house without those 3.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to get crazy expensive with stuff. I mean, if they're not going to bite one of those 3 colors, then it's just a tough day then.
Right.
So, I mean, that's just how it is. Them fish out there in the openers, they seem to be more opportunistic, whatever, how you want to say that.
That's it?
Yeah. If you get it in their face, they'll eat it. So.
Right. And also when you're sniping them, you don't let the bait get under them, huh?
No. I don't know what it is. Sometimes they're lazy.
Right.
Like I'll throw out there to them and I'll bring it by them too fast, and you'll see them kind of turn up and they're like, "Oh, never mind. I don't want to chase it." And then you'll throw it and it'll go under them, and they'll kind of spook a little bit, but they don't typically want to go down on it.
Right.
I've seen them do it. They have went down on it. But it seems like when they do it, you just bring it back up a little bit and they'll go ahead and hit it. But you usually want to keep it right above their head, bring it to them, right through them real slow. Or sometimes you just, with the longer rods, you just hold it right above their head.
Right.
And let them come up to it and nose it. I call it bird dogging. Oh, he's bird dogging. He's bird dogging.
Right.
And sometimes you just take that line, just give it just a little bit of pull, just to move that bait up just a little bit, and he'll go ahead and hammer it. So,
what do you think about those crappie that, say you're out there and you're sniping them and you're going along, and the crappie comes from underneath your boat and he's swimming and going that way? Have you caught any of those?
I've caught them at the trolling motor. I've seen them follow the bait up to the trolling motor, and either they'll see me first and spook, or they'll go ahead and grab it.
Right.
So, I mean, these fish have completely changed the way I think about them.
Right.
With the way these new fishing methods that we're using. I never knew they were out there like that. We spider rigged them, but I didn't know they'd be a foot deep in 60 foot of water.
Exactly.
So, and that they'd come all the way to the troll motor to eat it.
In the spring, we also have to deal with water. Like right now, we haven't had a lot of water coming into the lake, and the last 5 years roughly, we've had high muddy water, logs, and everything going down. This year might not happen. Maybe, possibly. I wouldn't bet on it. Mother Nature always fills up what it takes away. So, what are they to do what are they going to do if the water's muddy? Say like muddy, not stained, because stained is good, right?
Stained and muddy, but with mud, I give it the 2 days. The 2 days to calm down. When it's first mixing, they're going to be lethargic. They're not going to want to really hit because they're trying to adjust. But 2 days after that, they should be stabilized. And then use some of your either darker or brighter colors, your pinks and your whites is what I use, or purple.
Oh, purple.
Them fish will stay in them same areas usually. They just have to have a couple days to adjust. And when that water's stained or muddy, that's when you can really trick them big girls into biting. because they can't really see what it is. Because when it's clear, they come up and look at it all day, and it's like, come on, bite it. And you got to hit them in the head with it, and they'll just swim away like, I'm not falling for it. I've been here 7 years. I'm not falling for it. But them stain days, they can't really see what it is, and they go ahead and eat it because it's an opportunity.
Right.
So I like the muddy when it gets muddy.
But not silty, not when there's the grain, like you can almost see the
sticking
dirt
to your boat
flowing.
and stuff. No, ain't nobody like that. But I think after a couple of days they adjust.
Couple days.
Yeah, because I know a couple years ago when it flooded real bad, there was nobody out here because it was so muddy, and it was the best time I've ever had. So have it to yourself, and they're all big ones, and
we would have ran into each other.
You can't even see them in your live well because it's so muddy in the live well.
That's pretty muddy.
Yeah.
You have to put mud flaps on your boat.
Mm-hmm.
That's how muddy it was.
Yeah, it's muddy.
Pretty muddy.
But you just, like I said, you take that long rod and you just put it right in front of their face, and they'll just eat it.
Right.
So
they have pretty good eyesight, don't you think? I mean, we talked about this like before the show. We talked about having like most of like a small babe, like a small shad looking things, usually about 2 inches, but you're talking about that time of year, you're jacked up. You're 2 to 4 inches.
Yes. Yeah. Get into some of the bass baits, that we're using, anything that looks like a shad. Because we start catching fish that time of year that you catch them and they have a big old shad tail hanging out their mouth.
Right.
And that thing's 5-6 inches long. So like, okay, that's what they're eating. They're wanting a big bait to fill up on, and that's what we'll start throwing at them. And I think they can see it farther away,
right?
And it looks more natural to them. That ain't no bait. You're not throwing little baby shad at them. Stuff they might have seen before. You're throwing something. They're like, oh, that's what I'm eating right now, and they'll eat it.
Right.
But yeah, the distance, that makes a big difference. I think too.
Okay.
Bigger baits they can see better. I think they put off a sound in the water or a displacement. Makes a big difference.
Well, that takes us to Tackle Time. Tackle Time sponsored by PICO Lures. PICO Lures has a complete line of hard and soft baits. Of course, you can buy some baits that'll catch crappie that time of year, and big baits, liking the big baits thing. But and if you wait just a couple more months, you can troll PICO crankbaits too. But they got them all. They got all the lures you need to catch everything that swims in Beaver Lake or any of the reservoirs or rivers or ponds that you're fishing. You can check them out at PICOLures.com. Payton, if they want to find out more about you, or if they want to go on a guide trip and catch some of these big fish and throw big baits
at them
to big crappie, which that's if you're doing a formula, big baits, big crappie equal fun.
Yes.
Where would they go?
You can reach me at Payton Usrey Fishing on Facebook.
All right, there you go. Like I always like to end the show, make sure you keep your hook sharp, lures in the water.